right off the bat. If you make any gains on these types of investment, every year you get something called a 1099. And that 1099 goes to your tax guy. And your tax guy does your taxes, and depending on what your tax bracket is, it's either 10% or 39.5%. They just recently changed these numbers, so, but 10 to 39.5%, depending on your tax bracket. Sound like a good idea? Again, where do most people have their money though?
Tax now.
And that's all due to lack of education. All right? Now, as it relates to tax later, I want you to think of yourselves, everybody's in here as a farmer, right? And you have an option here. The government, the IRS, they said, well, we can tax you, we give you an option here. We can tax you on your penny seed right now, or you can come back later and tax you on your $1 million harvest. Which one would you have them tax? The penny seed or the $1 million harvest?
Penny.
Penny? Why is that?
Should be less.
Not as much money.
Right. Let's do the math real quick. Let's say they had to take out 10% either way. 10% of $100 is only $10. 10% of $1 million, $100,000. All right. Now, what you see in the media, in the news, in government, you think that taxes are going up or down? All right, because we talked about that last week as it relates to debt and how it relates to personal debt, household debt, and we're in the trillions of dollars overall, and the government doesn't make its own money, does it? So if the government doesn't make its own money, and we're in a $1 trillion debt, taxes are going. Now, I want you to pay close attention. In this political time, what are most politicians going to be talking about?
Taxes.
And how they're planning to lower them. But that's virtually impossible to do. Why? Because of what we just talked about. If we're in a $1 trillion debt and we're trying to get out of that debt, and the government doesn't make its own money, somebody's got to pay for it. Now they may find different ways, and they may color it and they may spin it, but we're going to end up. It's going to end up going up. All right. So what tax financial vehicles are saying? Don't tax me now. Tax me at an unforeseen amount of money at an unforeseen tax rate. We do know it's going up, but we don't know what it's going to be 10, 15, 20 years from now. And if it's already at 39.5% now, what do you think it's going to be 10, 15, 20 years from now? All right, so if we go back to our garage example, imagine yourself going into that garage and you ask the cash guy, and he says, you don't have to worry about it. I'll get you on the vacuum. You ever go to like Florida Hospital garage, right? And you drive in and you see that little rate sheet right on the side, on the side, and you know, like for the first 30 minutes it's only like a couple dollars, right? So you're like, all right, cool. All right, you stay half the day, it's like $5, $6, all right? But if you stay the whole day, you might as well just drop your wallet off at the thing and come back and get it later, right? That's just how it works here when you talk about tax later financial vehicles, all right? Now, they don't outright come out and say this is a tax later financial vehicle. They use fancy words, right? They don't say tax later, they say this is tax deferred. Have you heard that before? Mm-hmm. Did I spell that right? Is it I or E? Right? They call it tax deferred, right? Anytime you hear tax deferred from here on out, be very leery of what that is. Because all that means is that they are deferring your tax later. All right? Now, what are these financial vehicles, you may be asking? If you have a 401k, 403b, IRA, annuity, or pension, steps and kiosks, these are self-employed pension plans. These are all tax later or tax deferred financial vehicles.
What's the last one?
Kiosk. That's a self-employed pension plan. Normally, usually doctors have those type of pension plans once you get to self-employed status. All right? Now, if you thought that was bad enough, just with the tax implication, there's also some rules that you need to be aware of as well. All right?
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
So those are all taxed later, but those could be taxed now as well, right? Like the 401k, that can still, or, right? IRAs, can't those be taxed yearly or no? Are they all just mandatory tax later?
No, these are all tax deferred.
Okay.
The reason being, when you have a 401k on the job, what do they tell you? This is pre-tax. This is a pre-tax vehicle or pre-tax. What that means is that before they take the tax out, whatever percentage you choose, they designate that amount before taxes. It goes right in there. All right. Good question, though. Now, two rules that you got to be aware of as well. 59.5 rule and the 70.5 rule. The 59.5 rule states that if you take any money out of these accounts before you reach the age of 59.5, there's a what?
Penalty.
Penalty. Anybody know what the penalty amount is? 10%. Right? And that's in addition to the taxes that you would have to pay for that year. So let's say, for instance, you take out $10,000. Just know that you're paying 10% plus whatever your tax bracket is, because they include that in your
income.
Ordinary income. So say, for instance, you made 60 grand that year. Now you take $10,000 out of this long-term savings account. Now you made 70 grand for the year. So not only would you be, you're going to be losing that 10%. You could possibly go up a tax bracket and lose even more. So you can lose anywhere from 20 to 49.5%. Now, if you thought that was bad, you're not gonna like this next one. It's called a 70.5 rule, which states that if you don't take any money out of these accounts, and you wait till age 71, 72 to start taking money out. So you say, well, I want it to grow, I want that rule of 72 to apply where it's compounding and it's growing, but I don't take any money out of these accounts until I reach past the age of 70.5. It's a penalty. But it's not, it's not 10%.
Yikes.
50% on top of the tax implication.
Why?
So you could lose anywhere from 60 to 89.5% of whose money.
Why is that?
Let's look at it from the government's perspective, right? The government gave you a tax deferred plan, right? Which means that they are not able to tax it. And you are now 70 years old. What are you closer to? Living or expiring? Right? So, the government has to get paid, does it not? That's what that is right there.
So basically take it on your 70th birthday.
Yeah. It's too close.
Right? So
you just have to take some out. You don't have to take the whole thing out.
you don't have to take the whole thing out. So what it's saying in essence is from 60 to 70 is when you want to start taking that money out. Now, Does that mean that you're ready to retire at that point? Not necessarily. But what it tells you is that if you wait and you don't take any money out, you have a huge tax penalty implication if you don't. Now, here's the question that I have for you. When they're enrolling you into those 401ks on the job or where you are, do they explain that? Do they explain these? No, they don't. Why? Because it's not their job to explain it to you. Their job is to enroll you. All right? So it's up to you to really understand how these plans work. All right? There is a book I would recommend that you guys take a look at. It's called The Retirement Savings Time Bomb and How to Defuse It. And it's by Ed Slott. And if you don't know who Ed Slott is, he is a world-renowned tax advisor. All right, Ed Slott. Ed, S-L-O-T-T. All right, The Retirement Savings Time Bomb and How to Defuse It. And he explains tax-deferred plans, the pros and cons to them, and he gives alternatives to that, which we'll get into a little bit here. All right. Now, the IRS. Make sure my artwork is up on point. All right. The government and the IRS, they got together and they came up with two tax codes. The 77E and the 7702. And you can look this up on the IRS website, irs.gov, when you get a chance. And it says that, what does that look like, by the way?
Umbrella.
Umbrella, all right, good. My artwork is getting better.
Mushroom.
You see, mushroom, that's a new one. Some people say it looks like a jellyfish, you know,
Yeah.
and my artwork is getting better. It's an umbrella. Well, it states that if you have anything on this umbrella, you have safety, liquidity, which means you can take your money out of these accounts at any given time. You have decent, good rate of returns, anywhere from 8 to 12%. And you have something called tax advantages. Which means, if you do decide to take your money out, you don't have to worry about paying any taxes on those accounts. Now you may be saying to yourself, Kevin, that sounds real good, but what are those accounts and why don't I know about them? Well, the reason why most people don't know about them is because most financial firms that you're familiar with, they have a certain, let's say, target market. First and foremost, if you don't have $100,000 to $250,000 liquid, you're not going to get a phone call or you won't be able to walk into those offices, unfortunately. Even at your local bank. If you go into your bank, have you noticed that they started having wealth management divisions, things of that nature? And notice that you bank there, but you never get any phone calls or any emails or any text messages saying, come on in, we'd love to help you with with our wealth management division. Have you noticed that? That's because your account doesn't meet the requirement. If your account is under that $100,000 to $250,000 threshold, depending on which bank you're at, you're not going to get that phone call. Now we're talking about receiving financial education and being able to understand what options you have out there. All right? Let's say you did have that and you did get that phone call, right? You would walk into their office and a conversation would go something similar to this. Sir, ma'am, we'd love to put a plan together for you that would help you reach your financial goals. And In order for us to do that, it's gonna take us about 4 hours of work, and we work for $250 an hour.
How much?
$250 an hour. How many people does that knock out of the ballgame right there? Outside of having the investment to start with, and then coming up with a retainer of $1,000.
Knocks me out.
Knock me out.
Most people, right? Now, let's say you had the money to invest. Let's say you had a retainer and they were to put a plan together for you. They would come back and say, "Sir, ma'am, we put together this plan for you, and based on the financial goals that you have, we've outlined some recommendations. And if you take advantage of those recommendations, or you implement those recommendations, you'll be well on your way to take advantage of or accomplish those goals that you have." In order to take this plan home, though, it'll cost you anywhere from $500 to $1,500. Which is, now, how many people does that knock out of the ball game with that scenario right there, the whole entire scenario? 97% of Americans, also known as middle class, right? All right? So, that's why most people don't get that education that they need. Right there, right off the bat. All right? I'll give you one to go home with to research. All right? A tax-never financial vehicle, one of the more popular ones, is what's called a Roth IRA. Have you guys heard of it? A Roth IRA is a tax advantage plan, which means if we're going back to that garage example, you drive into the garage and you actually tell him, "Do I owe you anything?" He says, "No," you're good. When it's time to come out, you ask the tax guy, the cash guy, "Do I owe you anything?" He's like, "No, you're good. Have a nice day." That's how it works, right? Couple things you want to know. You want to understand how Roth IRAs work. It is actually the cousin to the traditional IRA. Couple things to note, however, is that this IRA is still subject to the market. So however the market performs, so does your account. So you have to understand what you're investing in. All right. Secondly, is that a Roth IRA is income restrictive, which means you can only put in a certain amount per year. Right now, that number is $5,500. All right. There is a catch-up provision once you reach the age of 50.